the Coalition's been very clear from day one, that is that we wanted to engage in this process in a respectful way, all with a starting point of wanting to see a better outcome for Indigenous Australians. And the onus has been on the government, continues on the government who proposes this set of questions, to demonstrate to the Australian public how the Voice can improve the lives of Indigenous Australians, particularly in areas like Alice, like Laverton, Leonora and elsewhere around the country. And the onus is on the government to demonstrate how this form of words and the change to our constitution will deliver the outcomes that people will want. Now, the Liberal Party's been consistent also from day one in saying that we want to contemplate and consider what it is the government's putting forward, look at the pros and cons, hear the cases for and against, and then we would make our decision as to whether we supported the Voice or not. I want to reiterate today that that process doesn't change with the announcement of the Prime Minister's words. We will meet as a Liberal Party party room and we will form a decision in due course about whether we support the Voice or oppose it. And that's the process which we've adopted from day one and that we will continue with. There's obviously already been some question marks around the words that have been proposed now. This is the third set of words that the Prime Minister's put. There have been legal ambiguity and doubt around some earlier versions, and it seems, at least on the early advice from Greg Craven, who's been a strong supporter and indeed advisor to the process of the Voice, now has expressed his view, his reservations about the words and the way in which they will impact on the Constitution. So that's the first authority, if you like, in relation to the Voice and the construct of these words. I think it's absolutely essential that the Prime Minister releases the Solicitor General's advice. From what we've read in media reports, the Solicitor General has concerns about these very words. And whilst there's been some cosmetic tweaking of them, there's not a substantive change in that regard that, as I understand it, would assuage the views or the concerns of the Solicitor General. Now, it's important that the Solicitor General's advice is released because in the absence of that advice and in the absence of detail from the Prime Minister, how can the Australian public make an informed judgment about a very, very important issue? So the Prime Minister, I think, owes it to the Australian public to release that advice, and there's precedent for it, which Julia might outline to you, and it would be very strange, particularly given the Solicitor General's presentation to the referendum working group, for them not to release that information and his advice about the form of words that the Prime Minister's proposed today. Julian.
Thanks, Peter. After the Solicitor General went to speak to the referendum working group and there were reports about the Solicitor General's advice and discussions with the referendum working group, I wrote to the Attorney General asking him to release the advice. That advice still has not yet been released. There is a precedent, as Peter says, in the Republic referendum. In the Republic Advisory Committee, which was set up by the Keating government, there was detailed advice from the Deputy Solicitor General as to the workability of the proposed Republic model at that time. So I think if the government wants to build confidence that they've got the right set of words, they should provide people with the advice that the Solicitor General has given on these matters.